Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 23rd August 2016, it is 24th August 2016. The first article is Changing Landscape in West Asia and the Turkey and the role played by the Turkey in this changing landscape, especially in relation to Syria. Now you know that the US and Russia, they have different stands on Syria. The United States want the Assad shall go. And Russia says that if the state structure is removed in Syria, it's ultimately going to damage the stability in Syria, and it is not good for any of the country, and it's not good for global safety. And Russia has its close relationship with the Assad government in Syria. Finally, the Russia has sent the troops in support of the Assad government, and USA has provided by the weapons and necessary support for the forces fighting against the Assad government. This has led to the growth of ISIS, which has posed challenges to everyone. So in this scenario today, the Turkey, it was online with the Western forces, especially US, with regard to Syria. What was the objective? It wants its Muslim Brotherhood to gain roots in Syria, and once pro-Assad government goes away, the Muslim Brotherhood can gain the power in Syria, which can serve the strategic interests of Turkey. And with Syria, Turkey is the country that shares the largest boundary. So in this scenario, recently there was a coup in Turkey. And then there are also allegations that to destabilize the Syrian government, Turkey has indirectly kept its borders open for the fighters of the ISIS to move into Syria. And also it has become a route for the ISIS to trade its oil. And Turkey has its own cancer. That is, south of the Turkey, you have Kurds. The Kurds of Turkey, Kurds of Iraq, Kurds of Syria, they are demanding a separate country called Kurdistan for themselves. And these Kurds have become the effective forces to fight against the growing ISIS threat. Now, recently, if you observe, in IS-held town, that is Manbij, the Kurds and Arab, in the name of the Syrian Democratic Forces, they fought together and they are able to overthrow the Islamic State from that area. So in this scenario, the Turkey has changed its stand. If you can remember, Turkey also has shot down the Russian plane on the basis saying that it has overstepped or crossed into its airspace. And Putin has adversely reacted to it and imposed the sanctions against Turkey. So, the coup in Turkey, it has changed every calculus. So, Mr. Erdogan accuses Fethullah Gulen was responsible for this coup, and he had the support of United States of America. So, the Turkey wants to warm up with Russia and Iran. You know that the Assad is a Shia and he is supported by Iran. And of the opposition parties or opposition forces, they are being supported by the Saudi Arabia. So in this case, the Turkey getting warmed up with Russia and Syria, it is going to impact the policy of Saudi Arabia. So in this scenario, that is Gulf Arab countries such as Saudi Arabia, UAE, which are supporting the anti-Assad forces, they are going to be worst affected because of this particular decision. Now coming to UP elections. So you all know that UP is the route to Delhi. What do I mean by this? So the party which gains the highest seats in UP can generally take up the power in center, or at least can influence the power center. So in these circumstances, let's take historically some example. So whenever the party lost the majority, whenever in UP, obviously it failed to gain the power at the center. It is true in the case of the Congress. So if you talk, when OBC assertiveness has started, and the Janata got the support of the OBCs, Janata Party, and it finally has boosted the Congress from the power in the post-emergency scenario. The Bihar and UP, these are the two major states that played an important role in the booster of the Indira Gandhi in the post-emergency scenario. Now, slowly if you see, the Dalits and minorities, these were nurtured as the vote bank of the Congress. So in this, slowly Janata, it has nurtured the OBC vote bank. if you take about Morarji Desai government, there were attacks of the OBCs on the Dalits. And second is, the BJP has represented an upper caste Hindu party. So this is what is the calculus, and the BSP and its emergence with the Dalit identity central to its ideology has changed the calculus over here. So now today the OBC and minority, so this social engineering was adopted by Samajwadi Party to get into power. Now 2014 elections were remarkable. The reason is the UP majorly voted in support of modernization, development and governance rather than just on the caste calculus. It has given a huge majority to the BJP. But however, from 2014 onwards, the growing Dalit insecurity, especially the Yuna violence in Gujarat, and also the recent attacks on the minorities, these are changing the landscape. So, the BJP wants to get itself strengthened in North India on the basis of Hindu unity. But however, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar remarks, if you remember, if the country gets divided on the communal lines, Hindu majority is going to dominate the real politic or dominate the politics, and there is no place for the democracy to work in such a scenario. So the democracy is all about the contention of the ideas. So if the country is divided majority versus minority, then the democracy is the one which is going to suffer in this scenario. So here, so that's why Hindu Hindu religion, it was mostly divided on the basis of the caste, and the caste calculus comes into the Indian election. So now there is a resurgence of BSP after the series of attacks on the Dalits, and it is trying a social engineering between Dalit and the minorities. Now here, if you take the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's view again, so the BJP was trying intercaste dining. Ambedkar has opposed to this intercaste dining. Now, what Ambedkar said, so there is abolition of the subcaste, intercaste dining. All these are the superficial measures to eliminate the caste in this country. If the caste and the deep-rooted thinking on the caste has to be eliminated, the sanctity of the Vedas have to be questioned, and then the intercaste marriages, they exchange the blood, kith and kin develop among the upper and lower caste. That changes the everything. So he opposed intercaste dining as purely superficial and an appeasement. So these are the things. Now coming to Kashmir. Now, any reconciliation in a war-affected region or an internal conflict-affected region, it has to be through empathy. You know that there is a disturbed situation in the Kashmir. So the Prime Minister of India has called all the opposition parties and gave a patient hearing for them, and he shared the pain and hurt of the Kashmiris. And this empathy is a first step towards reconciliation with Kashmiris. So in this scenario, the pellet guns have become the symbols of the state force against its own citizens. The first step the government has to take in this scenario is to abolish these pellet guns. Added to that, the Home Minister Rajnath Singh is taking up the Jammu and Kashmir peace mission. Obviously, this is also a goodwill gesture. Now coming to UN terror list. Now there is a committee that is called 1267 committee. What is this deals with? It talks about the terror elements related to Al-Qaeda and Taliban. So if any terrorist is named under this particular committee, the organization funds will be blocked across the world. Now India wants Mr. Azad to be put onto this particular list. So, but however, China has kept a technical hold on this matter, stating that there is no adequate material from the side of India to prove that he has connections with the terror attacks in India. And it also has led to a kind of an irritation between India and China relations. So in this scenario, India is going to tighten or else improve its documentation on this to support or to include Mr. Masood Azhar in the terror list. Now coming to the flood management in India, you know that there are 4 different stages in the disaster management. Now floods, you can predict the floods if you have a control over the scientific data. Now, in this scenario, India still relies on the scientific data which is based on the ground realities, or else the satellite imagery, geographical information systems, these are not used for. And the second thing, the capacity building of the disaster response teams is very less. If you take Orissa is an example how the capacities shall be built to face any disaster, and the Orissa cyclone relief, it is an example across the states which can be emulated, and how the disaster response forces need to be trained. And the third thing is the COSI. It is the major reason for the sorrow of the Bihar. So the studying of the patterns of functioning of COSI and its trajectories is very critical. So India need to take up the permanent steps rather than losing the life and property every year due to floods. Now coming to the reforms to eliminate the black money. Now, in this article they mentioned about revised India-Mauritius treaty. You know that any capital investment made in Mauritius, understand carefully, a company X is there in Mauritius and it is investing in a company Y in India. So, the shares of the Y company has raised tremendously. So that has led to some 1 crore profit to X. Because double taxation avoidance agreement exists between Mauritius and India, the X company says that the tax will be paid in Mauritius, but not in India. Then Indian authorities cannot do anything. So the Mauritius is a tax haven. So every company is willing to pay the taxes in the Mauritius. And residents of India, they are starting something called as suitcase companies in the Mauritius to avoid the taxes in India, especially the capital gains taxes in India. Now the revised treatment says that I think till 2019, the 2 years of grandfathering is given. So it means till 2 years. So there will be a window period. After that, the capital gains tax have to be paid where the income has received. It means every company, though it is registered in Mauritius, if it is gaining the money in India, it has to pay the capital gains tax in India itself. Now added to that, to prevent the cash transactions, so any cash transaction greater than 3 lakh has to be banned in the country. The government is thinking on those lines. Now coming to Foreign Contributions Regulation Act, it is very much in news. NGOs, they are being placed with many restrictions for the receipt of the foreign contributions. And the sedition charges have become the new tools with regard to fight against the civil society. So as for the Sedition Act 124A section of IPC, what the Supreme Court has inferred on that is any act of speech or any act of showing symbols or pictures which incite to violence that can only lead to the sedition charges. But the governments are violating that with impunity. And recent cases against the Amnesty India International is a typical example for this. And coming to the FCRA, so the government is trying to bring in the NGOs under the scope of the Lokpal and limit the fund flow under the FCRA by tightening the noose. On the other hand, it has relaxed the noose on the political parties. Recently, it has amended the FCRA Act to allow for the free flow of the funds to the political parties. According to this, any company which is functioning in India, if it has the foreign funds in accordance with India's stated policy, for example, if 74% of the FDIs are allowed in India, foreign funds are allowed into India in a particular sector. Now, if any company is investing for that amount, it will not be regarded as a foreign company because it has invested in as per the policy of India. So previously, any company which has a foreign ownership of 51%, it will be regarded as a foreign company and political parties are not supposed to take the finances from them. And it is now changed that whatever the investments, if they are in accordance with our investment policy, they do not come under the definition of the foreign companies and political parties can happily accept the money from them. So one way political parties are liberalized to accept the foreign funds, NGOs are getting tightened. Now, central services. Now, let's come here. IAS people, they get 2 years of seniority immediately after selection. And this is a heartburn for all the central services, including the All India services of IPS and Indian Foreign Services. Now, the demand for the central services is to bring in the parity between IAS and other services in the country. Now, the question will be like this. Do you think is this appropriate? The IAS, do it need to be the supreme service in the country? So the first argument is the generalists in today's society or in today's administration are being replaced by more specialists. So the generalists, as they are losing the space for the specialists, the parity between the generalists and specialists is expected. And the second thing is the total revamping of the administration is necessary because the central services, as their promotions to the secretary level, they are getting limited. As the secretary levels are encadred posts for the IAS, there is a stagnation at various levels in the central services. It means the number of levels in the hierarchy are less and the promotions are getting limited. So in this context, the motivation of the civil services is getting affected. On the other hand, IAS argument is this. Their responsibilities are unique as they have to act as a bridge between the layman, that is the minister, and the specialists. And second is, they have unique responsibilities, and at the same time, their service for the encadred positions demands extra energies and intelligence. So the IAS wants to reserve its forte and the central service wants to have new positions for its own self. This tug of war is going on between these two, and let us see how it changes towards. These are the articles for today, and from tomorrow I'm going to post them early in the morning because again I'm going to change my schedules. I have relaxed enough. So thank you very much and all the best.